Hey everybody, welcome back to Sunday Afternoon Smokes, your casual conversation podcast from the upstate of South Carolina. My name is Chris. I'm your host. I'm a realtor. I'm also the owner and operator of the Cigar Box, a mobile cigar bar that serves the upstate and beyond. And if you've been enjoying SAS, I'd appreciate it if you drop me a review. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Rebekah Fedrowitz.
Yes, you nailed it.
Got it right?
You did.
Sweet. Rebekah Fedrowitz, so welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I like to let my guests just introduce themselves. So take a minute, say as much or as little about yourself as you like, and then we'll get into it.
Great. Well, I am Rebekah Fedrowitz, and like I said, you nailed it. You said it better than my own mom does.
Take that, Mom.
Right. I am the founder and owner of Sante Vie, a functional wellness company. We are a virtual company, but we're based right here in the upstate and really excited and proud to be here. And we help people with getting at the root of what's going on and really thinking nutrition first around how much food and our nutrients catalyze everything happening in the body. And so we help with working to recover from pre-existing conditions as well as preventing things that may be in their future by helping them with their nutrition and their whole body holistic health. I'm also a mom and a wife and just love living here in Greenville. We're transplants to Greenville and love being here.
From where?
Well, from Virginia originally. We've been all over. My husband's job brought us here in 2011, and we've been back and forth. This is our third or fourth time. I'm losing track of how many times we've come back and forth to Greenville. But we came back 4 years ago, and they said, okay, now we want you to go to Detroit. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And that's when he changed jobs, and we became permanent here in Greenville.
Nice. All right, so we're skipping the cigar section today. We're up against a little bit of a hard time stop, so I don't have the leisure aspect. And, of course, you don't smoke cigars, which is totally fine. However, I'm curious, as a Board Certified Nutritionist, if you have opinions on cigars.
That's a great question. And this is not a hill I really spend too much time on, honestly. I think in general, there are things that we consume that one could argue are better or worse for you. And you take alcohol, for example. There's a lot of the drive movement in the functional and holistic health industries right now. I personally am not a smoker by preference. My husband does occasionally enjoy a nice cigar. I think that anything we do that is putting something into our body that it has to detoxify, we have to watch how much of that we do, and we have to make sure our body is set up to clear it out well. And I think cigars fall into that. So it is something that when all is going well, your body should be able to handle occasionally. Mm-hmm. And if that is what your choice is, I think we have these sort of luxury items in our health and the things we consume. I think it can absolutely have its spot for certain people.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And so that's all we're going to say about cigars. That's all we're going to say about cigars today.
I don't know anymore.
No, that's totally fine. Not a problem. So, Sante Vie.
Yes.
You told me before the show just a few minutes ago that is French.
Yes.
So, just out of curiosity, like, do you have French roots, or where does
that all come from?
Sante Vie come from? Yeah, and what does it mean?
Okay, so let's start with what it means. It means health life.
Right.
And really, I think we live in a culture where we have healthy habits that we feel like are kind of an afterthought, something we have to fit in, not a lifestyle we just live and breathe and embody. And I think that the way health really comes truly to us is when we embody health. Our life just is one of living in a way that leads to being healthy. And that's why the name. And why French? Honestly, because as I was coming up with this name, I've been in private practice for years. It was always my name, and I wanted to rebrand to something that encompassed more of a meaning and being able to grow the team and the number of people serving our audience, our network. And as I was coming up with names, everything felt so cliche and so overused, pure or natural. And I think in France, they embody the health life well. And so it just kind of led down that rabbit hole. And I loved the word Sante. I took French in high school. I don't speak French much at all.
I wish Frenchie was here.
Uh,
Well, shout out to Clara Osborne, a lady that used to work for my wife, but she's from France.
oh, no way.
Yeah. She just got back from France, and so I'm sure she had
She probably would have lots
baguette
to say. Yes.
and all that good stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry to distract.
No, you're good. I think that for me, it was something different and something that resonated with me, and that it was simple enough to explain and also caught attention
Yeah,
and didn't feel
absolutely.
quite so cliche.
No, that makes sense. So, I mean, you kind of gave us the rundown. I was going to ask that you're the founder, the owner, operator of Sante Vie, and tell us, what you do. But let me ask you this. So we kind of know what you do because you said it in the introduction, but you said you're virtual, so you don't have people coming to the office.
We actually have both. We're hybrid. So we do, I have clients from literally all over the world, from Germany and New Zealand and everywhere in between. But I love Greenville. When we found out we were staying, I told you, we moved and came back and moved and came back, and it felt like home here. And I felt like this is an area, having lived in places like California, where what I do is common and easily accessible. It isn't here. And I wanted to serve this area more. So putting down some brick and mortar roots, we do have an office in the Overbrook area of Greenville, and we absolutely meet with people in person there.
Okay.
And we meet virtual, and we also know a lot of our clients are women and are moms, and they're busy. And sometimes the way to make time for what we do is to be able to do a 30-minute call from school car line because
Sure.
that's what fits in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that even maybe the overwhelming majority of your clients are women?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Most of the time, even when I do see men, they've been referred in by women.
Yeah. What's the are men just like, I mean, we're stubborn, or hesitant, anything health or physician oriented? Like, what's the holdback for men, do you think?
That's a great question. I think it's a multitude of things, right? I do think there's some hesitancy around it. I think that men often, you've seen those commercials years ago. I don't know if you remember, there was this commercial of these stick figures, and this husband and wife try to do a diet program, and the stick figure of the man gets really thin, and the stick figure of the woman doesn't change at all.
Right.
So I think men can make surface changes and see the results of that. So they feel a little bit like, oh, this isn't needed. Whereas women are like, what's happening with my body? And someone please help me, because I feel like I'm losing my mind. I'm doing all the right things and nothing's changing.
Well, there's just a lot that goes on in a woman's body that does not go on in a man's body.
Correct.
Like the hormones, and then you throw in having babies, and then menopause and pre-menopause and post. I don't know that there's such thing as post-menopause.
There is. That's actually a really great point. So there's premenopause, which is the reproductive years. Then there's perimenopause, which is the transitional years. Then menopause, despite what we kind of talk about menopause as the stage itself. But menopause is actually a moment in time. That moment when your cycle just ceases to exist. It's a very small window. And then it's actually postmenopause. That's just not how we commonly talk about it. That's not what you're going to see on social media.
Okay. Yeah. Well, see, that's like, I've said this for several weeks now, and I need to buckle down. But a year and a half ago, I made some big changes just in my diet. And my wife would just kind of scowl at me for the very reasons that you said. She's like, men can just think about losing weight. And it happens. And I'm like, here, I'm spinning my, wheels, and nothing's happening. I'm doing all the quote right things, but so it's good to be a guy in that regard. So before we get any further, tell us really quick. So how can people follow Sante Vie on social media, and what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in the services you provide?
Yes. Okay. So you can follow us at Sante Vie Wellness on Instagram and Facebook, or at santeviewellness.com. Very simple there. And really the best way to get in touch with us, I would say DM us on social, but social's always updating. And I had somebody email me the other day and they're like, I sent you a message on DM and didn't hear back. And like, we can't find it anywhere because there's this new thing where if we're not both following each other, we may or may not get your message. So you're welcome to try. But if you go to our website and there's a book an appointment button, and if you click that, it books a free 15-minute call that you can tell us more about what you've got going on. And we'll say, okay, first off, is this something we even help with? And if so, how do we work? What are the options? What might be the best fit for you? And that's a no pressure, just a conversation where you can get to know us a little bit more and we can get to know you.
Yeah. So what are people coming to you for mostly?
That's a great question. So a lot of times people will pay attention to their health when their weight doesn't change. And interestingly, we are not weight loss specialists. I'm really big about weight is always a symptom, never the problem itself. But when weight doesn't change, people finally pay attention. Mm-hmm. Sadly, this is one of my sticking moments of being like, why? We've got to stop thinking about weight so much. But it does get people's attention. And so then they start to kind of watch. They'll try something and then they'll go, oh, well, I researched and learned that it's my hormones, it's my gut health, something like that. So a lot of times people are coming for hormonal things. I work a lot with perimenopause. We talked about the stages of menopausal changes there. And I work a lot in that perimenopause stage where the stuff that worked in your 20s and 30s is just no longer working anymore. You can't Band-Aid the things at the surface. Mm-hmm. And so they need more, or gut health issues. So perimenopausal hormones and gut health tend to be the two big things that bring people to us. And we actually work at the intersection of that because you can't separate any aspect of your health. It's also interconnected. But hormones and gut health have more synergy than most people realize. In fact, almost anybody realizes. So usually when we're working with one, we're also working with the other.
Right. Yeah. And so I'll probably talk a lot about my wife in this episode just because everything I've learned from her. But one of the things that she taught me is we just, maybe it's an American mindset, I don't know, but we tend to look at the number that shows up on the scale as to whether or not we're healthy. Just what do I weigh? And losing weight, while it is a good thing, generally speaking, your weight is not necessarily, it's not health.
No.
But that number is an indicator of some things.
It can be.
Right. So just losing weight, while that's a good thing generally, does not necessarily mean you're in good health.
Correct. That is it right there. Even when you go to your doctor, they look at certain basic measurements, one of which is your blood pressure, another is your weight, and then you might look at your cholesterol levels. Those are three key indicators they're looking for. And those are things that absolutely we're watching, but to me, they're all secondary. And often what we'll find is people will be very unhealthy while losing weight. They will have super poor habits, things that they've been taught are healthy, but that are actually sabotaging something really internal and foundational to their health. And the scales are moving, and so they go, well, it's working. I'm healthy. But you wouldn't believe the number of people I will see who have reached their goal weight, and then they're like, what is wrong with me? Everything is falling apart. Yeah, because you lost weight in a way that was really bad for you. You didn't know it. That wasn't what anybody taught you. But ultimately, you were compromising the integrity of your foundational health. And now everything's kind of crumbling around you.
Mm-hmm. And I want to put this out here early in the episode just so the listeners understand. And we'll get back to that. But I just didn't want to overlook it. That Sante Vie this is not a and I don't know the right medical jargon, but it's not a medical practice.
Correct.
You're not diagnosing and treating and curing. You're not prescribing medication.
Correct.
This is a what?
So the easiest way to put it is we are a holistic and alternative option for your health. And so we are synergistic partners with your medical practitioners. So you may, we can't diagnose. So if you come and you have every sign and symptom of a thyroid issue and even have blood work that shows it, I can't look at you and say, you have hypothyroidism. It's not my job. Your doctor can say that. what you can do is get if you want a formal diagnosis, you can get that elsewhere. And then my job is to help support your body at the root so that it rebalances and we are addressing what's going on, whatever diagnosis you have or lack thereof. Many times people will go, I can't get a diagnosis, I just know I don't feel good. And what we're doing is looking more holistically at foundationally, what are those symptoms of nutritional deficits and how do we support that? Because nutrition truly does catalyze everything happening in the body. And so whether that is you need more of a certain nutrition because you don't get it enough, because you have a gut health imbalance, a genetic predisposition to, right? We need certain nutrients like vitamins, minerals, things like that. Coffee, absolutely. And those things will then catalyze other reactions or convert in the body to then produce the next thing, the hormone or the ability to rebuild muscle or the gut lining or something like that. So we help to take whatever you are aware of or lack thereof. We look at the symptoms. We look at what your body is showing signs of needing more of. We work to replenish that so your body can do what it's supposed to do more naturally. So it's not a treatment. It's not a cure. It's not a diagnosis.
Right.
Yeah.
And just getting back to what we were talking about before I took that little segue to help people understand, you said, like, you've seen people hit their goal weight but feel like they're falling apart because they lost weight in an unhealthy way. Like, flesh that out for us. What does it mean to lose weight in an unhealthy way?
Yeah, great question. So many times what works short term with weight loss is hurting something else. So one example, and I could probably give you 30 examples, but one key example we'll see is some sort of caloric deficit. Because despite more and more research showing that that's not really the best way to lose weight, we still have this concept of it's calories in, calories out, which works on the premise that everything else on the body is functioning at its optimal level. Because truly, if you're in a perfectly healthy state otherwise, that is the most basic way to look at weight, calories in, calories out. And so what we'll often see is people will come to a caloric deficit and will up their exercise or something like that. And that does cause the body for a while to utilize excess or lack thereof, depending upon where you are, right? Some people start at a healthy weight, want to be thinner, but it uses what's already there to for that energy that they didn't get from food. And as long as it's using the right thing, that can be okay. But often we'll get to a point where the body comes into a state of nutritional deficiency. That could be what's called REDS, relative energy deficiency. So too long at staying at a caloric deficit can change our metabolism. It can change our blood sugar balance. It can lead to increased stress. It can lead to nutrient deficiencies. And so while we are still losing weight, we're actually starting to break down our muscle. We're starting to see things like, for example, that your gut lining will regenerate. And so if we don't have the right nutrients to do that, it starts to break down. Well, then what happens is we're not digesting our foods properly. Foods can get absorbed from the intestinal lining and into the bloodstream, which causes more immune reactions. We start to see autoimmune development, allergies, sinus issues, things like that. Nutrient deficiencies that will pop up because the gut isn't working. When digestion isn't working at its optimal, everything else will eventually start to break down. So we'll start to see that kind of thing happen. We need plenty of the right nutrients for hormone development. So hormone production decreases, which then ends up being this kind of battle. I see this a lot with women. For a while, I was at a caloric deficit. I lost weight. Now all of a sudden I'm gaining weight and I'm eating less and less and less. Well, that's that relative energy deficiency. The hormones are messed up. Your metabolism is messed up. Your blood sugar, your stress, all the things are basically shutting down. And your body will go into a state where it goes, I can't lose any more weight. I have to hold on to everything because I'm in an emergency position ultimately. So that's one of the key ways that we'll see a poor way to lose weight. It's not meant to be long-term. And we see this with other things too, extreme amounts of protein consumption and not enough carbohydrate. Over-exercising, even if they're not cutting calories, it's burning their muscles out and they can't recover. I mean, we could go on and on about all of it, but that's really what I see over and over again is just if we're malnourished in any way for any extended period of time, we break down internal systems and then the body will respond to keep itself alive.
Yeah, this probably differs from person to person. I mean, virtually no two bodies are the same.
Correct.
But generally speaking, we're probably speaking a lot of generalities today. But generally speaking, like, what is the proper balance of between like proteins and carbs? You know, because we love the carbs.
Right.
I love the meat. I'm a guy, you know, like, and the red meat and the pork and chicken and fish. But you know, the pastas, the breads, those are great. The mac and cheese. That's just all the great things. So what's a proper balance?
So this is a hard one to even generalize because it does vary, and we talk about it varying, like if you've seen blood typing diets or body shape diets and this, that, and the other. There's a degree of truth to that. Like certain people, I mean, even when we look ethnically speaking, when we look at your heritage, certain areas of the world did demand things. And so when we research genetics, we do start to see people from certain ethnic genetic pools do feel better on certain diets where it's slightly more or slightly less of grams of protein or grams of carbs. So it can wildly vary. And I would never, like the blood typing diet or these body shape diets, they're never as cut and dry as they seem. And I would say more often what will happen is someone goes, well, I'm in this current body shape. Okay, but why? Are you actually genetically that? So you take, for example, an apple shape where they're heavier up top. And they go, well, that means I need less carbohydrates. Perhaps, or maybe your cortisol's just really off and that causes you to gain body weight in your midsection. And yes, that might mean that you need less carbohydrates, but we can't go too low because if we go too low and it messes up your blood sugar without learning to rebalance everything, we're actually going to spike more stress. And that's where they go, well, I ate the right way, but I actually got worse. So there's no one body type or, you know, generally across the board. But here's what I would say. What I tend to teach is more about servings of. So it's more about, did you get enough servings of protein? Did you get enough servings of fibrous vegetables? Did you get enough servings of starchy content? So starchy vegetables and starchy grains. And we kind of create a range in that. So if we don't start with enough like vegetables, for example, we often tend to overconsume proteins and carbs. We love to look at things as protein and carbs. So especially like women right now are being told, oh, you need 100 to 150 grams of protein a day, which often leads to them not eating enough carbs, but then they want to know why they're tired all the time, right? So what does that look like? We want to start with...
I'm so way out of my league right now, man. I mean, the carbs are tired because the carbs provide the long-term energy throughout the day.
Well, yes and no. So carbs are, this is where I love teaching about this stuff. And we usually, what I love really is teaching over weeks.
Sure.
So really gradually teach people so that it goes, oh, now it connects. And like, we really get this. So there are carbs that give quick energy. This is your fruits and things like potatoes. Those are going to give you energy within a matter of a few minutes to a few hours, right? Then there are carbs that have higher amounts of fiber, and that gets extended in terms of its energy. And then things like protein and fat digest slower and give us longer forms of energy. However, they're not our body's preferred source of energy. So this is where carbs are quicker energy, but we need the right balance of, because if we get too much carbs, then we have this energy that spikes and dips and spikes and dips. If we don't have enough carbs though, oftentimes our body, so this is where I talked about like we can start to actually break down muscle and things like that. It's not getting a good source for immediate energy. And then what does it tap into? Sometimes if we don't have enough, we can actually have a stress response that loosens blood sugar.
Is your body breaking down the muscle because it can't get what it needs from the fat?
Potentially. If there's not enough of that fat, if our body doesn't convert fat properly, if you're in that relative state of energy deficiency where it goes, I have the fat, but I've been depleted of calories so long now that I'm worried I won't get enough. And so I have to conserve the fat and I'll break down this while I can in case I like really need the fat later. Does that make sense?
It's so smart. The body is so intelligently designed.
Our body will do whatever it needs to do to keep us alive. And while we in our brain understand what's going on, I'm intentionally avoiding, I have plenty of food, I'm safe. Internally, our body's like, yeah, no, I don't believe you. You didn't feed me enough for 3 months now. And at this point, like, I'm just going to do what I have to do, assuming the worst. Like, our body will go into survival mode way before our mind does.
Yeah, I mean, the body doesn't take into account that the economy is good and food's plentiful.
Right.
Your body thinks it's always in
survival mode.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
That's wild.
It is.
No, I mean it's amazing, but it's wild. So, you also stated that people come to you in your practice. Do you call it a practice? What do we call it? Okay,
yes,
come to you in your practice that you're there to guide them with realistic, strategic steps to improve how they feel and function. So, like, I know you know this, and I know this just by observing, but we are in a big waking up moment in our country when it comes to our food, in our health. So what we've been told the last several decades, or even currently, is it just not realistic? I mean, that's probably a Pandora's box.
Well, yeah. but one that let's open. Yes, to a degree, and no. I think what's hard is,
Let me back up. Maybe I can help give some direction. What have we been told that's unrealistic? Right? Versus what you are prescribing. How about that?
Right.
Is that easier?
Yeah, I think in general, even so, it's been interesting. I've been in this field for 17 years, and I have watched the functional. What didn't use functional is a new term. It was holistic and natural, and then it was integrative, and now it's functional. It's all kind of similar terminology, with some minor discrepancies. But like that world, this kind of alternative view, this less allopathic view of health, I have watched go from very unpopular to the new trend. But I think before I can even answer this, it's important to note that marketing is what drives popularity on things, and marketing works in extremes. And so I think what we're seeing a lot is diets like women need to eat 150 grams of protein. The more extreme, the more attention it gets. And so that's what we're often being told is right to do. And so I think that these extremes, while they catch our attention, they're unrealistic and maybe inappropriate, but they're what's catching attention. And so it's what we follow. It's unpopular to say, let's eat in a balanced way, right? And what does that even mean, right? I think there's so much of like the USDA balanced plate versus like what I would recommend. Pyramid. Yeah, the food pyramid, they're different.
Man, I mean, I don't know that they even do this anymore, but I remember, because I'm 45, and being back in like grade school, and they're going over the food pyramid, and you need blah, 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 blah. Of course, that's kind of been debunked.
Right. Yes.
And like it was on the back of cereal boxes.
Yes.
Hey, you're sitting looking at the food pyramid while you're eating a bowl of Frosted Flakes.
Right. Because it was grains, and therefore it was part of the healthy food pyramid. Right.
Even though they're laced with an ungodly amount of sugar. I love Frosted Flakes, by the way. I mean, a bowl of Frosted Flakes and some whole milk, and I can go to town. I haven't eaten Frosted Flakes in I don't know how long, which is probably a good thing.
Right. But doesn't mean you don't enjoy it.
Correct.
Right.
So there's a lot there. We're getting into, just like you said, women are told they need 100 to 150 grams of protein every day. But how do people wade through? Because there's carnivore diet, and there's keto diet, and now we need to incorporate intermittent fasting, and then we need to do people's heads are spinning.
How do you know what to do and what's and here's the reality of it. Any of it is realistic in the sense that it is applicable. It just, is it wise? Is it smart? Is it right for you? And so many times, coming back to the weight conversation, we do it, we lose weight, we go, well, it must be right for me. But I would say that most of it, in potentially a short-term way, and by short-term, I do mean very short-term, like a couple months, could have its space for kind of a resetting process. But none of it would I advocate for in a more long-term sense. It just tends to miss the mark on what our body really needs.
That's why you plateau, right? Because you're on X diet, whatever. And I don't mean diet as in a fad. I just mean whatever you're regularly consuming as your diet. And then you decide to make a change, but eventually your body figures out what you've done.
Right.
And then it responds.
Sure.
and then you hit a wall.
Right.
And so I was carnivore, and that worked for a while, but it's not working. So now I'm going to do keto.
Right.
And it versus, I guess, really sitting down with a person like you, what's going on in my body?
Right.
What do I need to feed it? Like to have, I guess we just probably need to actually learn what real health looks like.
That's so much of it. Like that right there is a really powerful statement. I don't think in our culture today, especially in America, we don't even really know what real health looks like, because I'll hear people say things like, oh, well, I have headaches, but it's nothing I can't live with. Well, that's not real health. Like you should feel great most of the time. And this is not to say that you're not going to occasionally have a headache or occasionally get a virus. We're going to have those moments. But more people live with ailments on a day-to-day basis because they're so surrounded by other people with those ailments, they assume it's normal and they just adapt to it rather than understanding how great you can actually feel.
Mm-hmm. What would, in your estimation, what does real health, what does it look like? I mean, what does it look like for a person long term?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that real health first and foremost comes from this idea that it is fluid. It isn't a stagnant state of being. You don't arrive and then you're there. Things do change. I mean, we talk about women and their hormones. We will go through seasons of change, and therefore we adapt in that to what our body needs, not adapt to the symptoms it's presenting and accepting them as age. I think that's real health, is being able to adapt in the seasons to giving your body what it needs to bring it to a state of balance there, rather than riding through stages and accepting new symptoms as just how it is. And when we get into that fluid state of living, and not expecting our health to always be perfect, but to know, okay, I'm not sleeping as well, therefore this needs to change. Or I did put on some weight, and while I'm not panicking about the weight, it's a sign to me that something's off. It's time to address it, evaluate what's going on, make some changes, and give my body what it needs. And ultimately, the idea there, long term, like when you look at life ahead, it's that you have the energy, you have the mental space. I'll say mental health very globally. We talk about mental health as anxiety and depression, but also like cognitive function. Can I remember? Do I have clarity? Things like that too. Is that continuing to be good? Do I have the stamina to do the things I want to do or to grow into that? That's what I'm looking at for good health.
Yeah, we're looking at people that are not suffering from brain fog,
right?
On a long-term basis, people that have been able to eliminate or severely reduce, joint inflammation and pain. Right. Whether it's diabetes, which in some cases I have read, like I am the unprofessional on this side of the table, but just a lot of it can be fixed with diet.
Yes.
There's just, and so I see what you're saying. And again, like to the point I made earlier, none of that, whether it's brain fog or joint inflammation or diabetes or chronic fatigue or whatever, none of that has anything to do with how much you weigh.
Maybe the joints.
Maybe not any of it.
100%. The weight tends to be the last thing to show up and the last thing to leave. But we do feel it. So if you have chronic inflammation and joint issues and arthritis, and weight issues. Weight is not causing your arthritis. It's just another symptom alongside of what's at the root of that inflammation. It's another symptom, not the problem. So some people would say, well, if I could lose weight, my arthritis would go away. No, right? We want to get to why you have the arthritis to begin with, which will likely cause you to lose weight. But that isn't the problem itself.
It'd be better for your joints to lose weight.
Correct.
Not just not as much pressure on them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to go back and talk about something that you mentioned earlier, because you said these words are they've been floating around, and some are in and out and back in, like holistic and functional and
integrative and alternative, all of those. Yes.
Yeah. So what do we mean by those versus, I guess, our status quo?
Yeah, the allopathic. So I think this is a good question, and one that I could probably really reflect on. I think what it is ultimately we have a medical system that has turned to disease and the fix for that issue, the medication, right? Like you even ask, like, what is health? Like in my mind, for me, what I hope health is medication free, right? Like that's where I want to be. Not to say that all medication is wrong and doesn't have its place. It's just I want my body to be able to do as much as possible with as minimal as possible medication. And our current allopathic system is we wait until we have a problem to give a diagnosis to give a medication. And the more natural, functional, integrative approach is one that says the body's smart. It has an innate ability to recover, to rebound, to rebalance. Not always. Sometimes it is too little too late, unfortunately. Sometimes there are things that need serious interventions, medication, surgery, etc. But when possible, where can we support the body with lower interventions to naturally give it what it needs to do what it is well adapted at doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I feel like if I have an issue that I don't deal with that will land me eventually on the cutting table,
right?
It's better for me to change my my lifestyle and my habits than to be cut wide open.
Right.
And have, all the ramifications of that. And of course, there's always a risk to surgery.
Sure.
Things could go wrong. You could have, who knows what effects you could have as a result of that. So if I can fix this problem by a change of diet and lifestyle, that's the better long-term solution.
Right.
And staying on the topic of what we've been told the last several decades, you said to me that much of the common health advice we get is incomplete or counterproductive.
Right.
Extrapolate on that.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of comes back to that: what markets well, what's trending, what gets you to buy in, to follow. And when you see what the wellness industry, the diet industry more specifically, makes, it's like you start to recognize they only want you to have so much success because they want you to come back and buy more and more and more. And so I think that there's a little bit of that, right? It's this big business around selling you a diet, and that needs money. And so it's only going to give you enough to keep you, to get you the success you need to come back for more. So there's a little of that. And also a lot of what is being taught online is too generalized. Again, I'll use the same example. A woman who's going through perimenopause needs 150 grams of protein. Well, but what if, right? What if she also has another issue where she has gut weakness, for example, digestive weakness, she can't break down proteins well. So is that actually helping her or is it not? So it doesn't look individually at all the layers of the things going on. It just looks at, you have this symptom, which is better with this, but forget about the rest.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my question immediately was why? I mean, that's a great question to ask in any scenario.
Right.
Like if people are telling us that a woman in perimenopause needs 150 grams of protein a day, why do they need that?
Right.
I mean, I asked that rhetorically, but I'm also actually
literally asking that.
Yeah,
sure.
Why?
Right.
Why? Why do they need that?
Well, and I think this comes from the extremes that we love to go to. It just like our human nature. We get tired of the hot summer and we're ready for winter, and then it's winter and we're tired of the cold. And so we do have a natural inclination to these volatile swings. And so for years, as women were trying to be thin and lean, and maybe were dieting and calorie deficit, they maybe weren't eating enough protein. And then we realized that, wow, their muscles are depleting because they don't have what they need to rebuild. And we need protein for detoxification. So the amino acids that come from protein are important for hormone production, for detoxification, and we, of course, know about things like muscle development, right? So there are elements that we need of protein. And so we go from, wow, we didn't get enough, to what if we got an extreme amount? What could that potentially do? And why, sometimes I wish I could explain why. In my rational mind, I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why do we go to these extremes? Why don't we rebalance and go, it's not. But in research, if you've done any kind of research, or research, whether you've conducted a study or dug into multiple studies, you see that it's usually some isolated thing. We don't go, well, what would it look like if we did 90 grams of protein and 60 grams of carbs and whatever it might be, right? Whatever are the grams. We go, let's just go to these varying extremes of protein and test that. So our research looks at one isolating factor, and then we drive that home. And I think that's what kind of happens with these crazy diets.
Yeah. Well, that leads me into something I was going to mention. Like, in addition to looking at the root issues in somebody's life, you personally at Sante Vie, you're also looking at the body as an entire system.
Correct.
When making recommendations. So, like, and as you mentioned, there's a need for medicines. There's a need in the right scenario. There's a need for specialization in the medical field for various reasons.
Definitely,
but it doesn't
yes.
make much sense in my mind, for instance, to treat, just pulling this out of the air, to treat a liver like it's a closed system in someone who has liver issues, because it's not.
It's not.
Like,
there's so much more at play.
Right.
Right.
So how do you, I don't know, the body at large is a closed system, but there's the heart, and there's the lungs, and there's the liver, and there's the gallbladder, and there's the pancreas, and there's
the musculoskeletal system, and so much.
Yeah. So how do you, like, is the best way for you personally when somebody comes to visit you? Like, do you recommend that they get like a full blood panel and you want to look at everything, just so you can get an overall idea of what's happening in this person's body? Sometimes.
So labs are actually, it's an interesting topic, because in today's trending world that we are in, labs are everything. And you'll get these social media ads for get 6 different labs for this much, and it looks at. And they absolutely have their place, but labs are a snapshot in time. And so it's really important that we combine labs with questionnaires, with an intake process that really dives into, because it's usually not even about necessarily what's happening right now. I will give stories of varying clients, like a client who comes and says, I'm breaking out into hives. I'm like, okay. So right from just looking at the problem, you go, allergies, what's happening? Well, I want to know why allergies, right? So, okay. And then I ask varying questions about other symptoms that might lead to. And then I tell them, look, if it comes up in your mind, I want to know the background of what was going on in your life, et cetera, et cetera. You tell me about it. And sometimes I'll hear of a woman who was in an abusive relationship, got out of that, and essentially her adrenals, her stress was just overtaxed from that. She was in survival mode, finally had a moment where she could recover. And then as her adrenals are like, oh, thank goodness, like I can breathe again, then what happened, right? So we start to track the timeline. Oh, it was adrenals that led to. So right now you're seeing these allergies, but what it may be is you have gut that's off, your gut bacteria. I'm getting into a whole story here, but your gut bacteria can dictate things like histamine levels, so allergies, which can manifest as seasonal allergies, itchy eyes, runny nose, things like that, but also hives that will break out, right? So histamine levels. So the gut bacteria is off, and that was off because you were in this state of stress, and your digestion just doesn't function right when you're in a state of stress. So we're not just band-aiding allergies. We're looking at going, okay, your adrenals need some care. Your gut needs some care, right? We have to look at holistically, when did it start? What was going on? What other systems are at play here? And the way that I describe this to my clients is it's like a river running down a mountain. And there's an area where trash and rocks have collected. And that's what you see. Those are the symptoms you're aware of. But ultimately, the trash and the rocks are entering somewhere upstream. And why, right? We want to find out why, because we want to remove the trash and the rocks, absolutely. But we also have to figure out why they're getting there so they don't come back. And then because the river flow has been impeded, anything downstream is now functioning different. Wildlife is not able to thrive because there was less water, because the rocks blocked it. Bacteria that shouldn't be living there is now having a heyday, right? So we also need to address that. And so through blood work, sometimes they'll come from their doctor and say, here's the blood work I had, here's what I was diagnosed with. I might run a stool test or something that looks at another side of things. We get this big picture from that. We do this intake form. We get the story to really understand, okay, this is the rocks and trash that we see. This is why it was getting loose and coming in to begin with. This is what's happened as a result of it. And then we develop a protocol to address those very systematically in the way that the body needs that support.
I love the stream analogy. I mean, it's really good. It makes a lot of sense. It helps people understand what's going on and not have to use all of the medical language.
Yeah, right.
So because a lab is a snapshot in time, when people make changes, should they go and do periodic
Retest?
Yeah.
Some of them, yes. Some are really good. Like, for example, let's say we do a stool test and bacteria is just all awry. You know, we've got good bacteria that's really low and bad bacteria that's really high. And it's like, oh, buddy. A retest is a good idea to make sure that the protocol is working correctly and that it's coming back in. And I would even argue that certain tests, like a stool test, should be part of your routine care process. Not every year necessarily, but every few years. Anytime you have any flare-up, I mean, certain viruses, like with COVID having hit, I've seen completely different results with people's gut panels than pre-COVID, for example. And so you get a virus, you may want to just check in and see how things are going. So there's absolutely reasons for retesting. And also, I think that we can become so fixated on having good results that for some people, it becomes this chasing of perfect labs. And that doesn't allow for the fluidity of, hey, you ate some chicken that was a little not great. Give your body a couple weeks. It will do what it does. If you're doing the right things, if your stomach acid is high enough, if you have the nutrients that you need, let's give your body a minute to kind of rebalance on its own. And if it doesn't, then we'll address it. But like sometimes overdoing labs can send us chasing results rather than how we're really feeling.
Yeah. I don't want to be the guy that works in the lab that analyzes
Oh my
fecal
gosh.
matter. Who wants that job?
Me
I
neither.
mean, you're just like opening packages full of people's stool samples every day.
Even having people do this, they're like, oh man. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. It's a miserable process.
Yeah. Not anything I've ever done is send in a stool sample. It just doesn't seem pleasant. But they like, what is that, Cologuard? You see that commercial for stool test.
The new way to test for colon cancer.
Bag it
Yeah.
and send it
Right.
in, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, but what do you learn from a stool sample that you don't learn from blood tests?
Oh, very different things. Very, very different. So stools, okay, so we can run a blood test called an organic acids test. Actually, that's a urine test. But you can
let's throw them all in.
Okay, so
what
there's a bunch of different, so
what are we getting from blood? What are we getting from urine?
Right.
What are we getting from...
You can do tests that are blood-based that look at nutrient levels, and that does test well for certain things. Because what we want to do is, this is the free-floating level of whatever it is that we're testing in the blood. But not everything really shows in the blood well. So, for example, when it comes to like hormones, I love a good saliva or urine panel over blood because it's...
You love it for what?
For hormones.
Saliva or urine?
Saliva and urine, especially like cortisol, we do a saliva test. Whereas, because it's just not going to show up in blood the same way because of the way that things are utilized. This is where it gets to be so nuanced and complicated, where certain things are blood-based and other things are going to show up in... Essentially, your urine is showing how something's been metabolized, and that shows a better output of a certain level of nutrients.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So, stool test specifically, what we're looking at there is the DNA of microorganisms in your gut. So, we're looking at anything from pathogenic issues like E. coli, salmonella, which we don't want to have, obviously, but those pathogens, to bacteria that should be present. So, we take probiotics for lactobacillus, for example. That's one that if you buy a probiotic off any shelf, it's probably going to have some lactobacillus in it. So it has the DNA. How much of that DNA is showing up to know that we have that present in our gut? And then bacteria that are commonly associated with gut dysbiosis, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, for example. A stool test doesn't test for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, but it does. Some of the bacteria that are associated with that will show. So we look for certain bacteria that we don't want to be really present in our gut. We look for those DNA. Also yeast, parasites, things like that. As well as the stool test that I particularly use looks at intestinal function. So do you have undigested fat in your stools that can show liver gallbladder challenges? Do you something called beta-glucuronidase, which will, if it's high, it can show things like our hormones not being metabolized properly. So that's where I talked at the beginning about how gut health and hormonal health are more synergistic than people even realize. We detoxify and clear out our hormones, and if that's inhibited, that can impact how we're feeling. So a blood test says, oh, but your hormone levels are fine, but a stool test says, hey, you're not detoxing them out, so you're producing the right amount, but you're not clearing it properly. Thus, we have
How can that be? How can your hormone levels be fine if you're not clearing them out?
So you can be producing the right amount, but not necessarily detoxifying the right amount.
Well, but doesn't that lead to an overload or an imbalance?
In some cases, that will show, and in some cases, it doesn't show right away. So a lot of times with certain lab work, any lab work, blood-based, urine-based, etc., by the time it shows, it's been what we'll call it kind of subclinical, meaning the symptoms might be there, the issues are starting to fester under the surface, but they're not manifesting yet at a level that's detectable. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So sometimes that's what we'll see there. So this is where certain things may be in the bloodstream and certain things may kind of exist in the gut, and then they will get reabsorbed. But are they reabsorbing at a rate that's detectable? That's probably the easiest way to kind of put that.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. So yes, you would think in theory, if we're not clearing it out right, it would definitely show in blood work. Sometimes, but not always. Because what we'll do is we'll then run like a urine sample, and the urine sample will show a different result than the blood sample. Isn't that interesting?
It is a Sherlock Holmes thing
right?
going on.
And it's kind of confusing. And this is where every practitioner has their own tests that they like or their own opinions of. And, you'll see a client will come in and they'll have said, well, I saw this doctor who said that this blood work was great and I was happy with the results. And this doctor said that they weren't. And I here's what I know. I don't feel good. So can you help me? Can you help me feel better? Right. And so that's where, again, labs can be hard to really fully understand. Are they giving a full picture? You can certainly run all the labs. But at what point are you kind of chasing a problem when it goes, ultimately, if you don't feel good, we want to help you feel better, right? That's the most important thing.
Yeah. This next question, maybe you're not the right person to ask. I don't know, but, and I don't mean to stick on the subject of stool, but just with all the things that you're testing for, what makes it such great fertilizer for your garden or for whatever?
That's an excellent question. I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that. Well, first off, so cow manure.
Yeah, you're not putting
right.
I guess some people use just. I've seen there's some crazy reels out there.
Hang on, it's interesting. Mm-hmm.
I've seen people using their own stuff for their garden, and I'm like, okay, but I don't know how different it is from cow manure. Of course, they're only eating grass and all.
Well, and that's it, right? So what are they eating and how is it revitalizing the soil that they're using it on? I don't know if I know the answer to that because I would venture to say that cow manure must have some different properties because, and now we're getting into a whole nother world, human feces, if consumed, can lead to problems, bad things, hepatitis.
Yeah,
right?
That's all the stuff your body can't use.
So I'm assuming here, making gross assumptions, but assuming here that cow
play on words you did there. Gross assumptions.
Right?
Yeah.
Not knowing much about cow manure, it must have a different profile, and I'm surely part of that is cow digestion is different, right? Because it is. They chew twice. Don't worry on any of this, right?
Yeah.
I know this, but I'm like, oh man, I know this to the degree.
I need to get an agriculture person.
Right? No, you do, right? Okay. So somebody who knows all of this, let us know.
Yeah.
Right?
Because people use all kinds, whether it's cows or chickens, like chicken manure is excellent. Even rabbit that I've seen is, but we're way off topic. Yeah. That's okay.
And clearly not my expertise here. I'm like, wait, is that correct?
So we look at the stool to help us with understanding what's going on in the gut.
Yes. Well, right. The landscape of the gut and the bacteria and the microorganisms in the gut function, because ultimately,
that's where everything's happening,
everything
right?
is.
Like everything you eat is going through the gut and being dispersed to the rest of the body.
That's it. So it's not just what you eat, but it's what your body does with what you eat. And so that's where we're looking at your diet, but we're also looking at your digestion because your digestion says, this is what I'm able to do with what you eat to a degree. And then it goes beyond that. I mean, this is when we get into genetics and things like that. Like if you're at all familiar with this field, you've probably seen things about like MTHFR mutations, which is essentially when we eat certain nutrients. One that's really common. We eat protein, and protein has an amino acid tryptophan. And so we think of tryptophan, it's like turkey and having a
turkey. That's the classic Seinfeld episode.
Yeah. So everybody knows this, right? It's a common analogy here. Well, tryptophan gets converted to 5-HTP. And then there's a process that happens that it can go one of two ways. One way is not good. The other way, it converts into serotonin. So genetics can play a factor into that, as well as other nutrients. So we often want to people will be like, well, I read that B6 is really great for it. Yeah, but B6 doesn't work by itself. Nutrients work synergistically. And so it's never just about taking a nutrient, but we need a nutrient in combination with the other nutrients it needs to convert that to what our body uses. So it's not just eating protein and then protein tryptophan turns into serotonin. There's all these steps that happen. It starts at the gut. If the gut is off, everything else is eventually going to struggle, even if a system is working well. If you work in a company and HR is hiring the wrong people, even if your marketing department's doing a great job, you keep plugging bad people into marketing, I mean, it's going to fall apart eventually, right? So that's ultimately what the body is like. It's like taking a company and saying, marketing is marketing and it doesn't matter what HR is doing. Absolutely no. HR has to hire right people to help feed that into marketing so that marketing continues to do its job well. So the digestive system is that first point of entry. And if it's not functioning well, it's only a matter of time before other well-functioning systems start to break down.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So speaking, you mentioned earlier, I know we've been talking a lot about gut health and hormones and stress. And I'm just curious about your thoughts on the, what's the word I'm looking for? The external forces and the role they play on our body, like stress, right? That's it's immaterial, but it's all circumstantial. What's going on in my life, and like you talked about that. I think you were just kind of making it up, but a person, even though it's a real scenario, like this woman who's in a very difficult relationship, her adrenals are just out of whack because the stress is high, and people that come from abusive backgrounds or difficult childhoods, and they've got a lot going on. It's an immaterial force that has a great impact on our body. So like, I don't know how you just run with that.
Yeah.
I said a lot without asking a question.
No, it's a good observation, and one that this is one of those, take a Venn diagram. A part of it overlaps with what I do, and a part of it really is getting more into the psychology and there's just many layers to this. And it's fascinating to me because we see it and we are starting to study this more. By we, I don't mean necessarily me individually, my team, but globally, we are studying this more. And it sounds so woo-woo to feel like, well, what you think influences how your body responds.
So
but it's we actually have hard scientific evidence that's showing things around. There's a book. Oh my goodness, I just completely blanked on the name, but I'll think of it in a minute. But there's books out there. There's more and more research that is showing. Because where's the biochemical response to stress? So when your environment is off, and that is something we do think of like it needs to be real stress, like an abusive relationship or something significant. But the reality is, and I talk about this a lot with my clients, if your 3-year-old has lost their shoes again and you're late for the 17th time in 1 week, you're like, ooh, like, oh my gosh, it's a micro stress, really, but it is this constant state of low-level stress that we're under, and there is absolutely a biochemical response to that. So whether or not it is tiny little micro stresses or major stresses, and listen, our body is made to handle stress, right? We have a stress system for a reason. We're just not made to be under constant stress with no recovery or big stress with no recovery. And that's what often happens. We have just constant low-level stress, periodic bigger stresses sprinkled in.
Depleted.
And then you're just always depleted. And the biochemical response to that, and this is my topic. This is what I love teaching people so much. So when we are under stress, we talk about the adrenals. They are only one of the things that are part of it. The hypothalamus is the command center of the endocrine system, and it receives this stress signal and sends out instructions to the rest of the system.
Okay, time out.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I'll let you pick up. Endocrine system.
Yes.
Is
hormonal system, essentially.
Okay.
That's basically what that is. And then, you really want to get into the nitty gritty of things. There's the neurological system and the endocrine, and then there's these overlap of things that kind of behave in both. I mean, it's very complex and also pretty simple. Endocrine system is our hormones, ultimately. So hypothalamus communicates with things like our thyroid, which is a hormone, and our adrenals, which is hormones, for example. So the hormones that are produced from these organs do respond. And hormones are the communicating, they're the ones sending out the signals to the body of what to do and how to behave. So when stress hormones are higher, it's literally telling the body anything that doesn't have to function to stay alive needs to stop or slow down. Anything that keeps me alive needs to accelerate. So if you've ever been in like a near-miss car accident,
Fight or flight.
it's that fight or flight. So it's like you have to slam on your brakes and you feel yourself like all of a sudden you're like everything is tingling. You physically feel that. That is that endocrine response from the stress, the adrenals, right? We feel that. What we don't realize is when our kid cannot find their shoes and you're like, for the love of all, we have to get out the door. I cannot be late again. This is killing me. That's still happening, just to a smaller degree that we're not feeling the tingling sensation that we did when we were almost in a car accident. But it's going on. And so while blood sugar gets released, and this is where people know that when cortisol is high, we have higher stores of belly fat, which here's the science behind that. So when we have the stress response, which is more than just cortisol, by the way, but cortisol is one of those things that responds, then our body goes, okay, I need more of what keeps me alive. So it takes stored blood sugar and makes it available for you to use. But many times when we're under stress, it's not like we're going and literally running away, right? The fight or flight, which would physically have that need for that released blood sugar. If you're in a near-miss car accident or your kid can't find their shoes, that blood sugar gets released, but you're not using it. Well, it doesn't go back to stored blood sugar. It goes to stored fat. And so we tend to see that happening. And so chronic stress leads to these problems that are happening like weight gain, fat gain. But other things too, our heart rate will increase, our breathing will increase, and things like our memory decreases because we don't need to remember. In that moment of running away from a bear, right? Yeah. Nobody cares if you remember what the color of the leaves were when you pass by the trees, right? Memory decreases. And so we'll see people who are under chronic stress and they're like, I just don't have the clarity. What was it that I came into the room for? Stuff like that. They're like, what is wrong with me? Yeah. Used to be crisp on this. Digestion is another thing that weakens. So we'll see people go, well, I was really stressed. And then I felt it in my stomach in some capacity, right? You feel the butterflies in your stomach, the loose stools, the throwing up. Those are very volatile, extreme reactions, obviously. But again, digestion doesn't need to be functioning in that moment to keep you alive. Mm-hmm. But if it stops you've just eaten and it just stops, well, what happens, right? Once or twice, your body rebounds from that, no problem. But if that's constantly happening and you're constantly under stress and your digestion is constantly going, I'm not functioning well, well, then what? Right? Yeah. And that's where we start to see nutrient deficiencies despite the fact that you're eating well, or hormonal changes or not clearing out hormones, and so on and so forth, that we start to notice. So absolutely, back to your original point, how much does our environment, our circumstances influence our health? So much, so much.
I'd be curious to know what was going on in my body, like when my wife had her stroke during surgery in April. Like, at Greenville Memorial Hospital, there's a Chick-fil-A in the food court down there. In those 6 weeks that we were in the hospital, I ate more Chick-fil-A. Honestly, I ate more Chick-fil-A in those 6 weeks than I probably had in my entire life leading up to that point. But in the first week and a half or 2 weeks, I ate so much of it, I didn't gain any weight at all. And the only thing I could, without putting it into medical, because I don't know it, my body was just in overdrive.
Yeah.
Taking care of her business, taking care of her house, it's burning everything I put into it. Of course, my sleep's not great.
Right.
So I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, straight up survival mode. And not to, I know we kind of throw things like that. Like we throw around survival mode and PTSD very loosely in our day-to-day culture. But then there are very real, that's very real survival mode. Genuinely. Your body was like, stay alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's probably still some of that going on just because the load is heavy.
For sure.
I really haven't done she's staring at me. I haven't gone crazy on the food that I let go of, but I'm just holding steady at 233, 234. Used to be 267.
Yeah.
But now I've worked at it. Need to get back to my men's multivitamins and other things that she told me that I need to take, and apple cider vinegar, because I had some like really bad gallbladder things going on. She's like, you need more acid to help break down the sludge. And
she is a smart woman.
Like I said, she's taught me a lot. And here's you can touch on this. One of the things that she taught me, she said this a few years ago, and I don't think I'll ever forget it, is, because a short 7 or 8 years ago, I was probably your standard average American allopathic, eat whatever, do whatever, you don't feel good, see the doctor, take whatever they give you.
Yep.
But I've done a complete 180 on that. And one of the things that she told me was food is medicine and food is poison.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, if you want to heal your body, you need to consider what you're putting in it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and now, I eat mostly from the perimeter of the grocery store.
Yeah.
Instead of from the center. Because, like the cookies and the chips. I love chips. But, the cookies, the chips, even the healthy granola bars.
Oh, right.
Just all that stuff that's been highly processed and glued together.
You really have to question why. Why?
Well, because it tastes good,
right.
Which means, your mental and palatal reaction is I need more of that later on. So I try mostly now to stick with meats, fruits, vegetables, nuts.
Yep. Great.
It's pretty much, the most of it. And I was telling a friend of mine who is pretty big into health the other day, like, I'm at the point now to where if I want to continue to lose weight, it's going to require like effort. It's true. Like if you're whatever weight you are, but for your frame, you're too much.
Right.
Everybody's frame is different, so there's an acceptable weight for every person. But like, I lost from 267 to 232, 233 was strictly a matter of getting rid of fast food, getting rid of sugar, getting rid of the highly processed, and eating pretty much, I don't even know what whole foods, more or less.
Right.
But now I'm kind of stuck here.
Right.
Unless I begin to, I don't know what the next step would be, maybe incorporating some actual rigorous exercise, or, I don't know, come visit you at I don't know. Of course, my schedule is difficult now.
Yeah. Which is why we're virtual. See?
Well, hello.
There you go.
That's why you're virtual. But again, like that, from where I was going was, if you go to the doctor, that it seems that our established medical industry is much more interested in treating symptoms than dealing with the root cause.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Which is where Sante Wellness, or Healthy Life comes in. Right. Because you look at
whole body.
Yep.
Everything's going on. And if something's not working, there's a reason for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let me just take a break right here and say that if you are ready to make a real estate move in South Carolina, specifically in the upstate, I am a local realtor with Sedan Joyner and a member of Nexus Group. I strive to get you the best deal in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of disturbance to your daily life. So let's find your dream home together in the upstate. Call me today at 864-207-2316 or visit my website, Chris Strother, that's STROTHER, chrisstrother.sedanjoyner.com. So back to that whole idea that food is medicine and food is poison. What should we and what should we not put in our bodies? That's a big question.
It is a big question. And I love this. And I love that concept because really, I think one thing we kind of have this idea is that there's neutral foods or everything in moderation, but ultimately every food that you put into your body is either adding to or taking away from your body. And we want to eat foods that are adding to our body. And so pending all else is neutral. And by all else, I mean, we're talking food sensitivities and food reactions, things like that would say a good food isn't good for you and you can react to anything. I mean, we think of things like gluten and dairy, but you can react to spinach, for example. So spinach is a good food.
I react to spinach.
Yeah, you're like, I would like to say that's true. Right. So pending, if we remove that from the equation, right, what are we looking at? And it is whole foods. And that, I will say, though, there's some margin to that I think people don't always consider. So, for example, you might see like a green powder, like a green juice powder, and it has wheatgrass in it. Well, and they go, well, that's a whole food. Yes, but that doesn't mean we were designed to eat it. You know what I'm saying? Like some parts of the grain are really hard to break down. And even though it is a whole food, quote unquote, whole food, it doesn't mean that our digestion was designed to break that part of it down.
That's the whole thing with cows.
Right. There you go.
No, it's seriously like they serve the purpose of eating, like foraging the grasses and the grains on the quote unquote prairie or in the farmland that we as humans cannot process. And they do it multiple times.
Right.
This is why we feel like, and you can talk about grass fed and corn and grain fed cows and blah, blah, blah. But the cattle can break down and digest the corn stalk.
Right.
We cannot.
Nobody would ever say, here's corn stalk for your dinner, right? We would all feel awful with that. And so the word Whole Foods is one that is mostly accurate.
You ever shop at Whole Foods?
I do. All the time. Which now, hold on, it's so annoying because anytime I'm trying to write out a protocol and say, focus on whole foods, it always wants to capitalize it because they have done such a good job branding. Even my computer believes that only Whole Foods is always related to the grocery store specifically, which I'm like, I mean, there is such a thing as just Whole Foods.
Right. We're not, when Rebekah says Whole Foods, we're not talking about the grocery store.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So eating foods in their purest form that is meant for human beings. Maybe that's really the way to put it, right? I mean, yes, you don't eat the orange peel, you don't eat the corn stalk, eat the part of the food in its closest to original form as possible. But things like rice, for example, I mean, brown rice is fine, but for some people who have digestive challenges where they're just struggling to break things down, white rice is also okay. I'd rather see that than something that's like highly, highly processed.
Yeah, is it all rice brown? And then it's bleached to be white, or how's it work?
Parts of the grain have been removed. The fiber, the bran has been removed to make it more white, and so you're getting more of the refined part of the grain. But again, I mean, and this is where you can do research and somebody will tell you something. I mean, spinach is bad because of the oxalates, or brown rice is bad because you can't.
Well, okay, that's something I wanted to ask you about, and maybe the answer is do your own research. And I don't know, but the problem is there's so many Instagram reels and YouTube shorts and Facebook posts about health from physicians and nurses and Robert Kennedy Jr. and Maha and the federal government and your best friend who's in his second year of med school. And I suspect that the topics cannot honestly be broken down into a 60-second clip.
No.
So for people that are seeking answers, how do they wade through this mangrove of medical information to find out what's true and what's not?
Right. It's a great question. It's like standing in Times Square and seeing a blurb about a book and assuming you read the book and you know all the premise. It's not possible, right? But I think what it is if something catches your attention, I mean, number one, I would say do a little research, but do it carefully because, again, I mean, research is... it has an agenda. I mean, that's the reality. And,
yes. Right? Who's doing the research? Who's paying for the research?
Right. And if you don't know that, you should always go, is this the full picture? And is there more to know about this before I make a definitive decision? And then it's so much of what's online and even what gets pulled in, and people are going to ChatGPT for their health advice now.
Is that a bad idea?
Overarchingly, I would say use with caution. And interestingly, okay, this is off on another topic, but I wanted to see, because I'll have clients say, well, I went to ChatGPT and it told me to do, and I did, and part of it worked, and maybe I'm better. And so I'm like, I want to see how well this works. So I took some real labs and real examples and said, write a protocol. And it would say a couple of things, and I'm like, yes and yes. And then it would say something like, recommend this. And I'm like, wait a minute. That would be contraindicated because of this that I also mentioned to you. And it's like, oh, thanks for pointing that out. You're absolutely right. Well, if you don't know better, you don't know to say, this person can't take this because they have that. They just looked, ChatGPT just looks at. And it's designed to research what's out there and available. So if 50% of the content is some blogger who did it themselves and decides now they're going to write about it and tell everybody else under the world to do the same protocol, and that's what ChatGPT is pulling from, well, then that's what you're going to get, which it does. There are aspects of it that can have validity. It's just there's a lot of margin for it not catching everything. And if you don't know what to look for, you could potentially do it.
Because that's not what you do.
Right. You could be doing something that inadvertently is really not good for you.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm a real estate professional and I run a cigar business. I don't know diddly squat about holistic functional wellness and health. So if I just jump on ChatGPT and say, I weighed this, I'm feeling some problems in this area, but what should I do?
Right. It's going to give you what is the mass majority of information boiled down. And you have to be really, really specific. So if you said, I am, this is who I am, I want it to follow this protocol. I don't want it to include. The more you outline, the more accurate it's going to be. But again, even then, it may recommend something and you're like, great, I'm going to take that. And you take it, you're like, wow, how do I feel worse? Well, because you either didn't think to tell it or it missed in some of the information you shared, some element of your health that would say, this isn't right for you. You should have taken that instead, whatever that may be. So there's back to the whole, like, how do you decipher through these 60-second reels and clips? They're a call for attention. And if something catches your eye, it probably has an element of truth to it. But remember, it's designed it's clickbait, right? It's clickbait. So always, always, always get input from somebody who not only is an expert, but like is an expert globally, like not globally, like I don't know all the things, but you can go to ChatGPT and assume it's an expert and it's still going to miss something. You need somebody who can ask the right questions and know where to dive in and say, is this true? And I'll have clients, I'll have friends send me reels and be like, I saw this about creatine. Is that true? And I'm like, no, yes, kind of. It's not wrong. It's not false, but I don't agree with their angle on this at all, but it got you to click and it got you to share, right? It caught your attention, and that's what it's really designed to do.
I guess the next question that I have is kind of it's a personal, I don't know, you have to have discernment and prudence and wisdom, which are all kind of cousins. Like over the last 5 or 6 years, and probably a lot of people in our country and around the world, we're skeptical towards the experts. Mm-hmm. So how do we deal with that? Right. Like whenever a person like you, and of course this is not a knock on you. I mean, you're a board certified, what is it?
Board Certified Holistic Nutritionist.
Right. How do you handle people? How should people think? Like, we want to be skeptical. We look at, I mean, COVID's a great example. I mean, the world at large is an example.
Sure.
Look at the mess that the experts have gotten us into. So, like, I can see how people might be doing research online and wondering, can I trust any of this at all?
Right. Exactly. And that's a hard, that is just where we are. And I think even part of our stress and part of everything that we're facing comes to this, who do I trust?
Yeah, and I don't even mean that in a wellness. I'm like,
and just
like at the stock market,
right,
and our finances and the health industry and like all the men in suits who've gotten us into the world wars and like.
There's so many things that we're always processing, and we feel like we can never know enough and we can never trust anyone. And then when we find someone who we think aligns with us enough or ultimately has a relief for us, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody where we can go, I wholeheartedly place my trust in you. I'm gonna kind of blindly believe you because you're providing relief. I think we want that because we're so fatigued from the overload of information. And I would say no one knows everything.
Right.
Like if you come and you meet with me, I'm going to say, I still want your input because you know your body better than anyone will ever know your body. So if you start something that has worked for 99% of people and you go, I'm feeling this way, I may say to you, that's okay, that's normal. Or I may go, that's good to know. Let's pivot. Because it is never a sure thing. There is no one who knows absolutely everything, and especially about you. And so how do you know when you can trust someone? I think it is, I mean, for me, a lot of it is prayer. Honestly, it is just like, okay, God, lead me to the right people who can help me, but also the discernment, right? I'm still, it is up to me to test and to discern and to evaluate and say, okay, does this align with my core values, what I believe, and what I want to be true? Like, not everybody wants the health path that we offer, right? Some people are like, I just want a doctor to tell me that genetically I'm predisposed to cholesterol issues and take the medicine and go eat what I want to eat. Okay, great. We're not your people then. Bust that.
Sure.
Right? So does what I offer align with what you want as part of your life? And I think that's true of so much. I mean, you even talk about like the world and who we're believing in government and things like that. I mean, we start to pick sides, but I think it's also important to know there's never, like I already said, there are reasons where there's medicine or surgeries. And just because you walk the path that I'm recommending on a day-to-day doesn't mean you're saying, I will never see a doctor or never take medication. No, it exists. It's not that polarizing.
Yeah. It serves like in the right circumstance, at the right time, there's a place for narcotics.
Right.
Yeah. My wife is a prime example of that. We're in the ER and she's got a lot of pressure on the aneurysm, and so they're in pain. And so we're going to give her some fentanyl, which recreationally, that's not a good idea.
Right.
But in this scenario, it's called for.
Right. Well, I think that's that polarizing. Like, we want to lump everything as either good or bad or right or wrong. And it is never that cut and dry. Spinach, again, like what is good for one person is not good for another. And we got to stop thinking about things as such a black and white way and recognize that it is more ambiguous than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. So on a practical side, like, what are some practical shifts that people can make that will have an actual difference in how they can feel from day to day? Yes,
this is a great question. And it's my answer is kind of an unpopular one because it will feel so basic that people will go, oh, it's not worth it. But it's what I find. I'll have people come to me. They've seen functional medicine doctors. They've been on medication. They've tried every diet. And then I'll go through an intake and I'll see some things that we absolutely want to work on. But then I'll be like, how much water are you drinking? Oh, I'm so bad at that. I drink 30 ounces. No. Like we can't start with something like that. Yes, there's more to be done. But like, listen. You got to drink enough water, right? You've got to start with
a couple. Never been good at that. My wife is like, water.
Yes.
I'm like, this is mostly water.
Right.
Coffee. It's like 99% water.
And listen, I love me some coffee, and I'm right there with you. And I get it. Like,
it doesn't really count as water, though, right?
No, it doesn't. It is a diuretic, so it. Technically, caffeine is a diuretic and therefore does increase your need for more water. But
if you want let's backtrack. If you want the stool sample to be collected easily, drink your coffee just before,
and water.
Yeah, and water.
So
do they tell you to drink a lot of water before?
You just want to be hydrated. I mean, like the finger prick test that we do for food sensitivities. If you don't drink enough water, like it will dry up before you even get all the blood spots done. Stuff like that. You got to stay hydrated. But it's such a simple thing, and yet we dismiss it. We're like, oh yeah, I'll get better at that. But hang on, we need to be well hydrated. And what does that look like? It's not 64 ounces. It's half of your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you should be getting 100 ounces plus more for things like being out in the heat, exercising. A day. I see you processing. You're like, oh, no.
Yeah. Like I need to be drinking 150 ounces of water a day.
Yeah. And hang on, it's not as simple as that, as is with everything, right? Because then we look at, is your mineral balance right? Because I'll have some people come to me and they're the opposite. They're like, I'm drinking a gallon of water a day. And I'm so thirsty.
9 1/3 pounds of water a day.
Right. But that's where we do, like, it is more than that. And it's not I'm going to drink water and I'll be fine. No, there's more to it. We got to look at mineral balance. We got to look at making sure your body's using what you're bringing in, of course. But if you're only drinking 30 ounces a day, you're not getting enough water, right? Like, you got to drink more water.
Hang on. I'm going to take a break really quick because I need to refill my I need to refill my water, my coffee cup, and I'm going to come back to this. One sec. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. Coffee has been refilled, or my water.
Sans water.
Yeah. So, obviously, water is life.
Right.
Without, like, the earth is, 75%
Right,
water.
I mean, you can go days without food, but not days without water. Right.
Our body is largely heavily proportioned with water.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the water? What's it doing? Why do we need it so much? I mean, it sounds like a stupid question,
right.
but it's not.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I think the thing is that it is a little bit of a delivery mechanism, and to put it in super layman's terms, it's like it's the lube to the machine, right? If the machine gets bogged down because it's not running well, it's not running smoothly, it just doesn't even do what it's supposed to do. And so that's one of many things. It also helps with detoxification, right? Because we do get rid of a lot of that water, and that carries things with it. It helps keep our stools regular, which also carries stuff with it. So it's important for a number of factors. And I'll also say this. I'll interject that I think we think of water as just having to be water, but you can have water in fun form, so it's not all miserable. You can have herbal teas that are naturally caffeine-free, not the decaffeinated ones. The process of decaffeinating in and of itself kind of changes things a bit. But if you're drinking herbal teas, iced teas, infused waters, things like that.
Why does herbal tea count as water and not coffee?
Because, it's not, like, coffee does in fact have water in it, but because of the caffeine, it acts as a diuretic, which will then cause you to lose some of the water that you're consuming.
Well, that's the same with tea, right?
No.
Well, you just said you didn't want them to have the decaffeinated tea.
The herbal tea.
Okay.
So the herbal tea doesn't have the same effect because there's no it's naturally caffeine free, which means it doesn't have that diuretic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
So, like, a peppermint tea or a ginger tea, or, they have all the blends, all the things. I know you're making faces. You're like, no, I don't want any of that. I mean,
like my tea cold and sweet.
Well, hang on. You can herbal tea. There's certain herbal teas that are really great ice, and you can sweeten preferably with something like honey, but I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. Honey. I mean, that's because what is it that you like to use?
Stevia. Yeah. Yeah.
That's an acceptable alternative.
Oh, this is a good topic, actually. So stevia, back when I first started in this field.
Our pronunciation, it was good,
great.
Dave.
Yes. When I first started, it feels like ages ago, you could only get stevia at like natural food stores in this tiny little bottle of white powder, and you would put like a pinch in and it would overly sweeten anything. So stevia is an herb. It looks a little like sage, actually. And if you eat the leaf, it's sweet. And so it used to be the leaf dried and then ground, which in and of itself seemed relatively okay. Now, research has actually shown that while it is free of calorie-based sugar, it has a sweet taste that still can signal the brain to respond as if you had eaten sugar. So it has an insulin-based response. And we do want to be careful about that, right? We want to keep insulin from responding too much. So in and of itself, and oh, by the way, also it has reproductive impacts. So the herbs have tremendous. So you're like, I don't care.
I'm done.
Bring it on.
Reproduction's ceased.
So it can have impacts on digestion. Some people, it upsets their stomach. It can have reproductive impacts. So it's an herb, and herbs do have impact on the way that the body functions. So in and of itself, I'm not altogether against it if it was in that purest of form, as long as person to person, you tolerated it, etc. And it's not overconsumed. However, this is the big however, it got to be popular. And now what we get in the grocery store is this overly processed, refined, you're only getting a part of, and I'm not a fan anymore. So, unfortunately.
Yeah, because there's only so much stevia that farmers can grow and dry and grind.
Right.
And so because it gets popular, demand increases, we can't keep up with supply, so now we have to make it in a lab.
Right. Which then comes to the argument of why do we need everything to taste so sweet?
Because we like it.
And you're not wrong. Hang on, we do, because
that's very American, I'm sure.
I mean, it is, yes. Oh man, I mean, this is a whole. We could talk for an hour about the types of taste, and this is this is where it's fun. I think food is a gift. Honestly, I think we could have been born with just like we felt full and we were done and we moved on. But God gave us the gift of taste and different types of taste. And again, we talked about like psychology around when your circumstances are. How are those influencing your health? But also taste has psychological. So sweet taste is soothing. Physically, it feels soothing to us. Psychologically, it's comforting. As an infant, we liked sweet tastes first. We had to learn to adapt to others. And then other tastes, bitter, that's our body's signal to be like, is this okay? We have to kind of adapt to those types of things. So talk about coffee. First time you drank coffee, did you like it? First time somebody has a glass of big red wine, did you like it? Probably not, because astringency and bitterness is something we have to develop a palate for. So we are innately born with a desire for sweet, and it's very comforting and soothing to us. And we lean into that. And we don't ever learn to develop the palate for the full spectrum of the different types of taste. And also we end up over-consuming. We overconsume sweet, salty, and sour. But our body wants the others.
I was just fixing to say we like it sweet, savory, and salty.
Right. So when we overconsume that all the time, then if you've ever had a meal and you're like, I'm full, but I want something. What?
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
At the end, you want something sweet.
Right. But what we do is we go back for more of what we know. But then we're always like, it's the constant munching, the constant need for the never, even when we're full, we're never fully satisfied. And that's often because we're missing the three other kinds of taste. So there's sweet, salty, sour, pungent, bitter, and astringent. And these are things that we find, it's kind of almost sometimes it's that umami flavor when we think of like culinary world, the umami flavor. What it does is it's the brightness. So we add a squeeze of lemon to our broccoli and all of a sudden it tastes better. It's that astringency that adds. It rounds out our food. We don't eat tons of it. We don't want, if your meal was overly astringent or overly pungent, it'd be like, oh, like pungency is heat, spice. So cayenne pepper, for example. If you had a ton of that, it would just be unappealing, right? It is the cherry on top that rounds out our meals. And when we have a meal that has all of those types of tastes, we walk away going, oh, that was great. That was good. I'm satisfied.
You were missing something from the taste wheel, which is so at the end you wanted whatever. Exactly.
But when we eat at Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and things like that, it's sweet, salty, sour, sweet, salty, sour. And then we're like, why do I always want more? And we tend to go right for sweet because it's comforting and it's because it's what we know. But we continue to lack those other kinds of taste. And then we just never fully feel satisfied. And that's part of one of the things we teach. And when we have a meal planning service, it's called the Nourish Plan, and it's a monthly meal plan. And when we're curating the meals, we're looking at a balanced day. We're looking at, are you getting enough of the servings, enough of the grams of the macros, things like that. But also, is it well-rounded in terms of taste so that you eat and you go, yeah, that was great. I'm satisfied. And then what it does is back to the whole conversation around stevia and this desire for sweetness. The more we feel more satisfied, the less we have a need for sweet to be in everything. Because while sweet is fine and absolutely has its place, I'm not against all sugars. And, and there are people who are like, you should never have alcohol. You should never have any sugar. You should never have any of, and they list like 20 things you should never eat.
Your life should be boring.
Right. Precisely.
No.
It's that meme. This was a few years ago, but it was like, somebody handed somebody a bowl of ice and they're like, here's your vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free ice cream. It's like, I mean, you can eat actual food, right? So we just need less of it rather than it feeling so boring. We're so satisfied by what we're eating. We don't feel the need to supplement in other ways.
Right.
And we start to have that taste for, like, I want black coffee. I love the bitterness of it. It's appealing to me. But that was a developed taste over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started drinking coffee, it was flavored creamer and sugar. Right. Super sweet. And then it became sugar with just like Coffee Mate, unflavored creamer. Yeah. And now it's just a little bit of heavy cream and coffee.
Right.
I can't drink black coffee. I don't find any happiness. So that's just me. Look, I want to go back because we got distracted by water.
Yes.
And
what do we do? What are the habits that we have?
So, back to the practical shifts people can make to help them how they feel from day to day.
Yes. Okay. So we talked about water. We got to stay hydrated. Absolutely. Then another thing is eating enough vegetables. And that starts with clarifying what are vegetables at all. Because people go, oh, I eat vegetables. I eat carrots and corn. And I'm like, oh, but those aren't the kind of vegetables I'm talking about. So I group vegetables into two. I love she's nodding her head. She's like,
yeah, we have an argument. We have an argument like corn and potatoes. She's like, those are starches, not vegetables. And I'm like, no, there's meat and there's vegetables. There's two categories. Potatoes and corn.
Agriculturally, yes. Nutritionally, not so much. No, I mean, I break things down into fibrous vegetables and starchy vegetables. And we started to talk about this when you were like, okay, what's the percentage of carbs and protein?
Sure, yeah.
Oh. So when we look at it that way, right? Potatoes, you're like, I got my carbs. And I'm like, but I'm going to need you to have some of the fibrous vegetables. And that's why I count more of like, did you get enough of those servings? And this is the number that shocks people.
Run me down the list really quick.
Yeah. So so fibrous vegetables would be, think green. They're not all green, but think green. So like leafy greens, broccoli, asparagus, but things like cauliflower are not green, but that counts. Brussels sprouts, yellow squash.
Okay. But interesting, because I don't really textually view those as fibrous. Like I would, like if you cut through a sweet potato, I'm like, it's like strands, very like fibrous, but I guess that's not how it's
starchy more than fibrous.
Okay.
Yeah. So think fiber like, and then, I won't go down the whole rabbit hole of the different kinds of fiber and what they do in your body and don't do. I'll just say, ultimately what we're looking at here is when we talk about macros, like carbs, one is lower carb per volume of. So if you eat a cup of broccoli, the carbohydrate level is low, whereas a cup of sweet potato is going to have a higher carbohydrate level, right? So starchy is a higher carb level. Grains are starchy. I put those in a separate category, but like think that way. So potatoes are very starchy, whereas your green vegetables have a different fiber content and lower sugar-based carbs. It's ultimately the easiest way to put it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, think green. And then there are some that really are kind of in between. There's a lot of room for, like, we can't get too nitpicky. Like beets, for example. I put them more in the starchy category, although their sugar kind of carbohydrate is much lower than, call it a white potato, for example. Carrots are another one. So I count carrots as a starch, not as a vegetable. So if you think of having a meat, a vegetable, and a starch on your plate, I put carrots in the starch category. But a lot of times what people will do is they will have chicken and carrots and rice, and that's a double starch. So what I want to see is more of people having, again, generalizing the green vegetables. Green, and again, some room there. But green vegetables, 5 servings a day. And most people look at me like, you're kidding. I'm not even getting one. Right. This is what we work on.
How much is a serving?
That depends a little on what it is, right? So if you kind of look, like if a bag of spinach, if you grab a bag of spinach and you grab a handful, that's about a serving. Whereas it might be like a half a cup of broccoli. It's a little bit depends upon the thing itself. So if you're putting it on your plate, I'm going to start with that being a serving.
That's a forward step.
Right. That's a forward step. But yeah, look at the bag, right? If it says, like, if you buy a bag of 5 ounces of spinach and it says this is 3 servings, well, then you know a third of that bag is roughly a serving. And we're going to kind of go rough there. And so what that kind of looks like to get that is, typically speaking, we're finding ourselves, and I say 5, nothing is daily. Like this whole idea that you have to have a certain amount of percentage of grams or calories, nothing is daily. And one of the biggest struggles I have with any diet plan is it's really rigid and our body doesn't function.
It makes it really hard to plan.
Yeah. One day you're going to have 3, the next day you're going to have 6. I'm kind of looking at, if you look on average, this is what we're kind of aiming for.
Yeah. Does it matter how you eat it though? Like if I'm need X amount of spinach and so I just make a spinach salad.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing, but if you wilt spinach, it turns to almost nothing.
So we eat it in a variety of ways. It is the same. Yes, it absolutely behaves different in your body, but that's okay. And I actually really encourage, like, one time have raw spinach and the next time have it cooked. It's okay. And that can be even certain nutrients, like you might have heard tomatoes, for example, have lycopene in it. And lycopene is actually more bioavailable once the tomato has been cooked. And that's not to say you shouldn't eat raw tomatoes. It's just understand that different value and different digestibility. And some people don't tolerate raw vegetables. I mean, there's many layers to this. So eat it how it seems good. If let's say you put a handful of kale in your smoothie and that's raw, but then you turn around and have it wilted or roasted for dinner, great. That's ideal. Have it a mix of ways, because ultimately it isn't just about the data around your food. It's about enjoying it. Mm-hmm. And so eat it in a way that tastes good.
Yeah, eating shouldn't be a chore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So people need to drink roughly half their body weight in water, in ounces, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Good luck to you.
In ounces. 5 servings of fibrous vegetables a day.
Yes.
What else do they need to do practically?
Another one that is a simple tip, but watch that sugar.
Yes.
Because you would not believe how much, if you actually track your sugar, most people are going to go, oh my goodness, I'm not eating that much.
It's insane.
It's insane. It's in everything. My son and I were at Costco, and he saw these kale chips, and he's been inundated with healthy foods, but we eat good. It's like, he's now old enough where his friends will be like, man, I wish I had that for lunch. So like, we're over the curve of it's uncool that I'm eating healthy. It's like, okay, we're now there. But needless to say, there were these packaged kale chips. He's like, what are these? And I was like, oh, this could be a good snack. And I turn over the package to read the label, and there's like 5 grams of sugar in it. And I was like, why? Why? Why is that even? Why are we putting sugar on our kale? Like, make it savory, put some spices on it, like whatever that is. We put sugar in our salad dressing. We put it in absolutely everything. Yeah. So if you're buying anything packaged, you're probably getting a shocking amount of sugar. Mm-hmm. And if we curbed that, if we drank more water, ate more vegetables, and cut down on the sugar, many people would find that a hefty % of their struggles goes away. Not everything. There's always more to it than that. But if you just started there,
yeah,
it would set a good foundation.
What's the difference to your body eating? I mean, because all that you mentioned, that would be what we would consider added processed sugar or added sugar. Eating that versus, say, the natural sugar found in an apple.
Right, exactly. Great question. And so we do want to consider total sugars, absolutely. But of course, natural sugars behave very differently because it's that whole synergy of nutrients. So I'm going to sidestep for a minute. It'll make sense why I'm going there. So when we talk about like eggs, egg whites and egg yolk, and we talk about how the egg yolk is so bad for cholesterol and eat the whites, but what we don't realize is there's nutrients in the white that actually help break down the cholesterol in the yolk. So we're better off eating it all together. And the same thing can kind of be true when we think of fruits. So nutrients work synergistically. And so while, yes, an apple may have 20 grams of sugar, it is in with that fiber of the apple and other things. So it changes the rate of digestion a bit. And it is still sugar. Understand, like, if it's like, well, I ate 7 apples in a day. Well, that's a lot of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. But nonetheless, right, the more refined, we lose the minerals of it. And so I said earlier, everything either adds to or takes away from your body. When you're eating a refined sugar, you have to take stores of some nutrient in your body to process and clear that right. And what we want to do is eat foods in the form that they're adding to our body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said there's enzymes in the white of the egg that help break down the yolk?
Yeah, there's nutrients in the whites of the eggs that help break down the cholesterol in the yolk of the egg. So we're better off eating our eggs
if you don't understand the chicken egg.
Yeah, right?
Well, because the white is the chicken.
Right.
And the yolk is the food that will feed the white that turns into a chick.
So in general, our food, like I say, it's synergistic more than we realize. Like, as we've studied more and more about nutrition, which is honestly kind of a relatively new science, right? Nutrition as we know it didn't really start to be studied until the 80s. So when you think of some sciences that we've been studying for years and years and years, that's new. And what we're finding more is like we're researching an isolated nutrient, B12 or iron but everything works with something else. And I think our food is a great example of that. I mean, even when we look, historically speaking, eating rice and beans together can make a complete amino acid profile. So complete amino acids, proteins.
Looking at you, Mexican restaurant.
Right, yeah. They know what they're doing. Or lime with corn. Lime helps to break down the corn. We instinctively used to do this, and now we're getting so into the data of it that we've forgotten how much things were created to work together naturally.
Nice. We're going to move on to just here at the end some personal stuff, because what I really like about your story and what you shared with me is that you were not a person that was just super interested in holistic nutrition, got a degree, and you're off and running because you love this stuff. This whole thing started because you had your own physical battles that couldn't be fixed with the status quo.
Right.
So tell us what you were facing and the actions you took that did not help, and then what finally made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So I seem to be an overall healthy child. I had reflux as an infant that was just written off as like, oh, babies have reflux, whatever it is.
Do they?
Well, I mean, that's what my mom was
so she should know.
Yeah.
Do they?
No, right. But in the 80s.
The answer was no, by the way. Babies should not have reflux.
They should not. I think, again, this comes back to, we've already talked about this. We have seen so many things become common to the degree that we've normalized them, but just because they're common doesn't make them normal, doesn't make them correct, right?
Right.
And reflux as an infant was one of those, well, that just happens sometimes. There it is. Otherwise, I seemed overall healthy-ish, right? And then I hit my teens, and it was chronic sinus infections, allergy issues. I started struggling with my weight by the time I was early teens. And I did all the conventional things. I had sinus surgery. I had my tonsils removed at 15. And they were like, whoa, these were some gnarly tonsils. And that's shocking. And so it's like, okay, well, we went the path that we went, right? The allopathic path.
Quick question. Like, I don't even know. Obviously, I know about tonsils because it was a super popular thing when you're
right. Everybody had their tonsils removed.
What are they even for? What do they do?
I don't know if I can really fully answer that. Outside of my wheelhouse to a degree.
Okay.
But, it's my knowledge here is they're part of the system's, the body's response to help keeping you healthy, right? So when they're inflamed, it's showing that something is off.
Okay.
It's the layman's way to put it.
It's like an alarm system.
Right, kind of. Yeah. And so when they're chronically inflamed, there's something chronic going on in the system. But
the answer is not to take them out. It's to find out why are they inflamed.
It, right? You've got it right, exactly. But that's not what we did. And so I had a deviated septum repaired, and for the most part, it was better-ish, but still like lingering. And then by the time I was in my early 20s, I had hormonal stuff, and the response to that was go on birth control. And I had adult acne, and I had headaches. And with headaches, they were like, well, let's run an EKG and let's do a blood sugar test. All of which, of course, came back fine because that was never the issue. But I'm sitting here going, I'm in my early 20s and I'm over it. Like, I'm over it. And I'm sitting here facing things, and I'm reading stuff about people who are in their 40s and they're complaining about this for the first time. What am I going to be like when I'm 40?
Yeah, that concerns me. Like, sometimes my daughter will talk about reflux or indigestion. I'm like, you're 12.
Right.
You should not have this.
Correct.
Like, what the heck is going on?
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Gut health. That, we can absolutely improve, right?
So anyway, just a quick sidebar. Like, what was your career path? Like, what was the plan?
So I had a degree in communications, concentration in public relations. I worked for associations with association management, conferences, and big events, things like that. And I just completely dropped it all. Like, basically the short version of where I was, I had all these things done, and I was very persistent. Back when I was in college, as a hobby, I had to control my weight. I had to do all the things, right? So I started teaching fitness classes and got certified as a personal trainer and got certified as a group fitness instructor. I did it after hours. I had my full-time job and then just did this because it kept me active. And the short version is I'm trying to just keep looking for something. And I did a continuing education course for one of those that led me down a rabbit hole that eventually ended up discovering Ayurveda, which is an ancient Eastern principle, an India-based principle around whole body health, essentially. And that led me going, okay, tell me more about this because this is connecting. And
I'm sorry. No, I'm just laughing because you're talking about this ancient Eastern India thing, and all I can see is all of the reels on Instagram of like the Indian street food and how they're cooking, and it's just like, this is so unsanitary. Yeah, sorry, continue.
No street food recommendations included, but yes. But hang on, right? They have flavor.
They have,
which was a lot of kind of the Ayurvedic philosophy
Yeah.
was even incorporating like the types of tastes and things like that. So it just one thing led to another, and I started understanding. And mind you, this was not what it is. Like, it wasn't on Instagram. You didn't have
Right.
these things. So I'm researching and learning about it, and started making some changes based on what I could, and was instantly seeing things improving that had never changed, never pivoted. Went back to school, went through the master's diploma, wrote my thesis on estrogen dominance and natural remedies for estrogen dominance, because that was what I was ultimately facing, along with some stress issues.
What does estrogen dominance
Yeah.
mean? Because, women,
Right, we should
obviously,
have
she
estrogen.
should have more
Right.
estrogen than testosterone.
So your hormones are meant to be in a ratio with each other. And a
Correct.
lot of times when women get their hormones tested, they're like, well, my estrogen is normal and my progesterone is normal. But when you look at them synergistically, it's like, well, but they're inverted in terms of what should be higher. So you can have the correct level. Like, if they, tests are based on the average. So if we test, 100 people and we see that the average ranges are from here to here, this must be normal. This is the range that we're looking at. And therefore, if you're within this range, you're normal. Okay. So your estrogen is within normal range, therefore it's fine. Or your progesterone is within normal range, therefore it's fine.
Doesn't
But
really mean anything.
that doesn't mean anything, because when you look at it and go, okay, but my estrogen is on the low normal and progesterone is on the high normal, or vice versa, therefore the ratio is off. And that's hugely important when it comes to hormone balance. So I had relative high estrogen, aka estrogen dominance. So I talked about beta-glucuronidase in the gut, not clearing out estrogens properly. And therefore, I'm ending up in this state where my estrogen progesterone was not synergistically working together like it should. So working to remedy that. And again, the river down the mountain, that was a symptom. What's going on at the top? What's going on at the bottom? Addressing all of that.
That just makes me think back to when we were talking about blood panels earlier. Like, if one of your clients goes to LabCorp or wherever and gets a blood panel ordered by their doctor or whomever, and a physician looks at their blood panel, and then you look at the same results, you're going to see two different things.
To a degree, right. And because I'm often not even looking at this number and this number. An example of this is in the stool test. So there's H. pylori is a bacteria that can grow in your stomach that we don't want around. And when it's around, that can often point to insufficient stomach acid, because we have to have enough stomach acid to make it an inhospitable environment for H. pylori, right? So when it's high, I start going, how's the stomach acid level? Which can, believe it or not, low acid often has high acid, like reflux type of symptoms, right? But then I'm also looking at, okay, let's look at Firmicutes. So if Firmicutes it's a type of bacteria that feeds on undigested food. So if Firmicutes is high and H. pylori is high, then there's no marker that shows whether or not your acid levels are high or low. But I'm looking at things in combination that lead to something else. And so, maybe you don't have enough acid. How can we support your body producing more acid, making it an inhospitable environment for the H. pylori, not giving the food to the Firmicutes, bringing those back into range, all because really it's about something else.
Yeah. So you decide to throw in the towel on the communications. You go back to school, you get your master's in what?
In holistic nutrition.
Master's in holistic nutrition. And then this ultimately leads to the launch of Sante Vie.
Many, many, many years later. It was just me. It was my business. And moving around, a lot of my life just was not conducive to having like a brick and mortar space with a team.
Okay. Well, where does it begin? Like Sante Vie?
So that is a relatively new name.
Okay.
A year and a half, a little more than a year and a half ago now, I launched that brand. And that was a byproduct of when my husband left the job he was in. We decided we were going to stay in Greenville, and I really wanted to. It's always been a dream of mine to have a team, because I can only reach with so many people. And I love teaching. I love speaking and developing programs and really educating foundationally. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy working with my clients. I just think I would love to spend more time doing that. But that means I need more people meeting with
Public
clients.
education.
Right. So real building a team. And that's where a year and a half ago, I was like, yeah, we're gonna put some roots here in Greenville, hybrid, of course, but like headquartered here in Greenville. I'm going to start hiring some people and expand the practice. And it didn't make sense to just be my name anymore.
Yeah. I think it's Sante, not Sante.
Sante Vie, yeah.
Santa Claus. So Sante Vie is basically a newer iteration of what you were just doing on your own.
Exactly.
So after you got your master's, like, when do you begin just your little personal, like, immediately?
Kind of immediately. And even, so I finished the practitioner diploma, the first level, and was really starting my business at that point while I continued through the master's. And I actually stepped away from the business. I still continued to see referral clients, but took an opportunity to go work with the Holistic Nutrition Association, kind of blending my careers, which was amazing and really great to be behind some of the legislation and the education of the practitioners. And then it did some other work to help with growing the field. Mm-hmm. Well, again, still seeing some clients, but taking a step back. And then when I had my son, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back into my own business again.
Mm-hmm. So you're meeting with clients, whether that's virtually or in person, but how are you, or Sante Vie, how are you connecting with the upstate? Like, I know you said, are you putting on talks, doing workshops, webinars? Like, what's the activity to raise awareness? Or
we are constantly growing in this and looking for more and more avenues. So we do workshops alone and in conjunction with other local businesses. We one of the things that it's on my agenda for this school year is getting plugged in more with the schools and helping with how can we educate. I'd love to change at the system, but even just educating. I can't tell you the number of my clients many of whom are moms, are going, okay, now that you've helped me, how can I help my kids? How can I make better lunches for them? How can I, right? So how can we educate the families more? And so we want to do more around our local school systems. I will teach, there will be local conferences that I'll present at and doing things like that as well.
Nice. That's going to be what would you do in the schools though? I mean,
yeah,
if it's
the big side.
Food, I mean, parents probably should send their children to school with lunch instead of whatever the lunch fare is. I understand that's not feasible for some families who are struggling fiscally. But I mean, trying to upend the school lunch system, that's
well, and that's where
I don't know that would be the goal, but
maybe one day. But short term, it is educating those who can. And so this is a kind of a weird example, but it's one that sticks with me. Have you ever seen the movie Devil Wears Prada?
I've seen parts of it.
Okay, so there's this scene in the movie where Miranda Priestley, and oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name, but the girl who comes in, oh, you guys, I should know her name. This is the perimenopause brain. Names are the things that I sometimes forget. Anyway, Miranda Priestley says to this new assistant who's kind of scoffing at the designs, like, you think that you're oblivious to this, but understand that the belt that you're wearing that you bought at your, romance store came up from the fact that someone was willing to spend an absurd amount of money when it was trendy, and then it worked down to become popular. So start with who will make the changes. It's not for everybody yet, but the more people who make the change, the small fire will turn into the bonfire, and maybe eventually it will change a system. That is not my goal for today or tomorrow or next week, but offering workshops, offering resources. Where can we help the person who goes, I'm not okay with the way that it is, and I am willing to take the step to do something different and to help my kid, and giving them tools and resources to make it really practical. Like, because sometimes it's like, first off, what do I send, right? What is healthy for my child? And then second, how does that fit into my day-to-day life? Because I cannot spend 4 hours cooking for my family every day, right? So even starting with stuff like that, workshops and educational opportunities.
Do what you can do.
Yeah,
just start.
Right? And what is the range of that, right? It may not be, I say this all the time, perfect is only as good as it is achievable. So, I talked about your servings. If you can get a green vegetable on your plate, I'll take that. That's a step in the right direction. I may have the perfect plan, but if it isn't achievable for you, you're just going to abandon ship before you start. What's the achievable step for now? We'll take one step at a time. And so if it is simply just changing one small thing about what you're sending for yourself or your kids, it's a step in the right direction.
No, that's the right concept. I remember interviewing a guy a couple of months ago, and he's it's all about company and branding and helping. And he said he had a guy that came to him who wants to basically be like the power washing king for the state of South Carolina. And he's like, that's a great goal, but how about you just be the guy who crushes your neighborhood first?
Right.
Like, you start there, and then from there, like, do maybe your city, and then for the county, and then like, you can't start at the top.
Right. And visionaries, which I say this as one, sometimes the dream, the idea, the bigger purpose it's so there, and it's what drives you every day. And yet you have to start where you are and help where people are willing to make the change. What I can do today is educate and build awareness around. And some people will go, that's not for me. I'm not there. It's more than I can handle. I don't agree, whatever that is. And someone's going to say, oh, interesting. Tell me more. Okay. If it plants the seeds, if it causes you to watch some TikTok video and that makes you make a change, it has the trickle effect. What is it? The butterfly effect. There's all these different analogies, right? And that's it. It will make the change, right?
Awesome. Yeah. So what does, I know you said Sante Vie is roughly a year and a half old. So what does it look like today, and what does the future look like?
Yeah. So, we work a lot with people who are reactively helping their health. And
what do you mean by that?
So they wait till there's a problem to fix it.
Okay.
And unfortunately, nobody wants to spend money on them where they don't think there's a problem. So one thing that I hope is to continue growing our practitioner pool, because I really do want to be teaching and speaking and creating programs that we can get into the hands of more people. Because there's so much that, even in a one-on-one session, I mean, how much can we teach? Right? We're there to talk about you, but then there's foundational information.
There's so much only you can teach, but only so much people that they can absorb.
Right? And you have to hear something over and over and over again. And so the future is opportunities to learn, to hear over and over, to make it so practical, to make it a health life, to make the way that you eat and the way that you live something that just becomes so natural that you don't even have to think about it. And that is the goal through, of course, our one-on-ones that we'll continue offering. We do offer group programs, and we do those topic-based. So like, we have a perimenopause program coming up this fall, and we'll do varying group programs that are topic-based to help with getting more information to more people. Some self-guided programs, retreats, things like that, taking a family away where they can go, oh, we learned to cook where it was fun. And then it doesn't feel like this cumbersome thing we had to fit into our day. We learned it together. It's something that we now want to go back and implement, making the learning of this lifestyle enjoyable and practical, and something that doesn't feel so daunting. And so, yes, we will always work with those reactive, you have a condition, you don't feel good, you come to us for help. And as a result of helping mom, we are then helping husband and kids and parents and grandparents, right? The trickle effect is there through the varying tools and resources that we provide.
It's got to be tough to get people to take their health, I don't know if seriously is the right word, but to be conscious of it when things are quote unquote fine.
Right.
Like, you don't know there's a problem until there's a problem.
Right.
And so people are very reactive.
Right.
Like you said.
Yeah, it's our human nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right. Well, look, we're about, let's go and wrap this up because we're about at that hard stop. Who are a couple of people locally that you think I should bring on to the show?
Oh, good questions here. Well, I adore Curry at Core. She's great. And so our practice has actually moved in with Core. I used to be downtown, and now I actually moved the office into Core because we just synergistically see the bigger vision and wanting to change health, and particularly influencing the upstate in Greenville. So she's great, and she's great to have a conversation with. She's one person. Katie at Limitless PT is wonderful. She will talk a lot about, she's a pelvic floor PT, but they also have other kinds of PTs. She's another great person that I would highly recommend. And Lindsay at Teal House Strategies is another, all great women who have.
What's Teal House Strategies?
It is a marketing company, but she also has an organization called Her House that is an organization for women and just getting women out in I'll say networking capacity, not in networking, like stand up and tell me about your business and refer each other, but like getting out and talking about real things, and many of whom are professional women and women in business, and really great organization and great purpose behind what she's doing. So those are 3 people who come to mind right away.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll grab those referral from you probably by email.
Perfect.
Look, if you are in need of my services as a realtor or with the cigar box, which I did not talk about today, you can get me directly at 864-207-2316. You can also visit mobileCigarBox.com to check out the business, learn more about it. You can also fill out the booking and query form there. If you'd like to set up a consultation with me as a real estate professional, you can email me at cstrother@cdanjoiner.com. Rebekah, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been super fun and informative, and I'm way out of my league understanding any of this. I just need to drink like 9 gallons of water a day, and I'll be in good shape. All your problems
will be gone.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening to Sunday Afternoon Smoke. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it on your socials, and share it with the world, because Sunday Afternoon Smokes is really sweet. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.